Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Hannah Merz, matricular 0208424, and I'm doing my presentation of corporate governance today, and with the subject of Lufthansa, comparing it with the company of Turkish Airlines, Lufthansa being the European company and Turkish Airlines being the non-European company. Okay, let's start with Lufthansa. Non-stop you, that's their motto and logo. They were founded in 1953, so a couple of years ago already. They have a fleet size of almost 700 airplanes and fly to over 215 destinations. They have about 120,000 employees and the headquarters are in Germany. Coming to Turkish Airlines, their slogan is "Widen Your World." They have a founding year of 1933, so a little bit older than Lufthansa. They have a fleet size of 266 and fly to almost 260 destinations in the world. They have, in comparison to Lufthansa, a relatively small amount of employees. Here, not even 20,000 people. And they're headquartered in Turkey, in Istanbul to be precise. Okay, let's start with the actors of corporate governance. This is the first part we're going to look at today. We have 5 subsections. The first one being the services produced. We are going to have a look at the mission of the companies. Furthermore, the ownership structure will be one subject, the board of directors, and we will also look at the structure of the website concerning corporate governance. Okay, let's start with our first company, the European company Lufthansa. Their services produced. It's a European company, and it's one of the leaders in the global aviation business, consisting of various service segments next to the usual passenger and freight transportation. Further areas of Lufthansa's expertise are in the areas of logistics, catering, and even IT services, which is probably rather unknown. It of course makes the firm an international venture with a very diversified portfolio, with almost 500 subsidiaries worldwide, and the transportation network ranging into almost all countries of the earth. Second one up is the mission of Lufthansa. They describe themselves as the European airline powerhouse, connecting Europe with the world and the world via Europe with a global service. The customer is the center of their attention. They focus on providing reliable services for their passengers, and cooperation with their partners also strengthens them in a volatile environment. That's what they focus on as well. They have a very highly motivated and dedicated team, which also in their eyes leads to their superlative quality. And in an atmosphere of transparency, trust, and diversity, they would like to, merge with other companies and become one of the leaders in the industry. The target is, of course, grow profitably and maintain a healthy financial structure. Of course, not disregarding the aspects of being ecological, civic, and socially responsible. As can be seen from those points, Lufthansa is very customer oriented, and of course, as a global company, they also have to keep an eye on their financials in order to stay ahead of the competition. All parties are here taken care of, so it's not like they're only focusing on their customers, but also on their partners, on business partners, and the environment as well. Now we come to point 3, the ownership structure. Lufthansa is German owned, which can also be seen by their company structure. They have to release this structure every 3 months, this nationality structure, And we can see that there are a couple of companies besides Germany. Germany, of course, holds almost 70% of the shares. Luxembourg, the Cayman Islands, Saudi Arabia, the UK, and obviously the US are part of the structure. When we look at the voting rights and the share structure more closely, we can see that there are a couple of holding companies taking part in Lufthansa, such as BlackRock, the Capital Group companies, and the Templeton Global Advisors. They are holdings and not individuals leading these companies. Thus, it can be said that they're not run by individuals as such, but jurisdictional persons. As none of these three companies holds more than the required 20% of the shares, it cannot be said that there's like an ultimate controlling party underneath those three. We have three minority shareholders, as just said. There's BlackRock, which is also one of the largest investment management companies. We have the Capital Group company, which is a privately owned investment management firm, and we have Templeton, which is also one of the big leaders in this market. They are not only involved in the dealings of Lufthansa, but also in companies such as Amazon, Bayer, Continental, and Deutsche Bank, which means that they compensate possible losses from one industry with the profits made in another. Thus, they take a lower risk investing in one of those companies than it actually is to invest. And they also have a safety cushion investing in several companies at once. Our fourth point is the board of directors. They have 5 members. They have focused on the areas of strategy and development, logistics, finance, controlling, and of course human resources and legal issues. When we look closely at the people within the company, it becomes clear that according to their current positions at the company, they're also educated, trained, and have experience due to this position they hold. What's interesting to see is that Lufthansa also has 2 females on their board of directors, which is interesting in the case that it also includes a transformational leadership style, which can also add value to the company. The individual positions are appointed by the supervisory board. The executive board can, however, make decisions to the supervisory board, and at the annual general meeting, those suggestions are then potentially turned into action through the election of the discussed people. Okay, they come from the areas of business administration, law, controlling, commercial, and engineering, so they have been trained in various areas. The final part of this first part will be our point number 5, the structure of the website section, corporate governance, which is interesting. It also has various topics underneath it. It holds the areas of compliance, stock programs, the articles of association, of course, as well as the executive board and descriptions of the supervisory board. They show information on the corporate governance practices, of course, and they define their code of conduct in a relationship with obligations and prohibitions of their employees in order to circumvent legal conflicts. And they also have something in place which is called a preventive system. It includes an employee reporting option, so workers can state their opinions and assist the company in ensuring that no illegal action is taking place. And in this regard, training sessions and related information distribution to employees is seen as essential. So the integrity and loyalty is of inextricable importance for Lufthansa. Good, then we turn to the other company. We turn to Turkish Airlines and look at those parts as well. We start again with the services produced. As we all know, Turkish Airlines is one of the biggest international aviation companies. They were, as already stated, founded in the 1930s, and the company expanded rather quickly in the course of the following centuries, and is now one of the global brands with operations and flight routes all over the globe. And by 2015, their forecast on transportation volume is about 140 million domestic and international passengers, so quite an impressive number. Number 2 is the mission of Turkish Airlines. They say it's to become the preferred leading European air carrier, which is interesting to see that they say become and not we are. So they do know they're a little bit smaller than companies such as Lufthansa. So they want to become the preferred leading air carrier. They have a global network and they focus on strict compliance with flight safety, thus reliability, product line, service quality, and competitiveness. And at the same time, which is rather important for such a small company in comparison to Lufthansa, they want to keep everything under the identity of the flag carrier of the Republic of Turkey. So their national identity is very important to them. One of their core values is honesty, as well as fair dealing, and which leads in succession to customer satisfaction. So here again, the customer is one of the important issues, but they also focus on teamwork. So it shows that they're not only customer oriented, but they also want to keep their employees happy and keep them as long as possible. Turkish Airlines has this open door policy, which is coupled with the agreement of confidentiality and innovation, and on the other side it depicts a guideline of efficiency and effectiveness in the services they produce. Looking at point number 3 is the ownership structure. Here the Turkish government owns almost 50% of Turkish Airlines, while the almost remaining 50% of shares are publicly traded. The ownership distribution structure changed through the history of the company, and so the British Overseas Airways Corporation used to own part of the shares after being responsible for the supply of the technical support. However, after the change of the government over the years, the ownership structure also slightly changed to now and to how it is today. Point number 4 is the board of directors. Here the company focuses on the principles of transparency and justice, responsibility and accountability, as well as perfectly publicizing and presenting Turkey as a country, and as well the Turkish aviation sector on an international platform. So what is important to mention here, that the company is not only taking care of its international image, however also it wants to be seen as the Turkish national company as it is. And if we look more closely at the people on the board, we see that we have backgrounds in economics, engineering, and also the aviation industry. Here we have also architectural backgrounds, political science, law. So what can be stated that the experiences and skills are diverse and multiple, and the combination promises a successful merge of knowledges and ideas in order to achieve a competitive result for the company. These prerequisites are optimal for an international aviation company to stay ahead of the competition, to be able to re-innovate, further develop in order to meet the future demands that are coming to meet the company. Looking at the election of the board members, they are set out as follows. The person who would like to run for office is required not to be placed under guardianship or curatorship. And another requirement is the fact that the applicant should not have gone under bankruptcy personally, or also have run another company into bankruptcy by management. Of course, also the conviction for a crime would be a no-go. Also, other shameful offenses would be reasons not to be eligible to run for office at Turkish Airlines for the board. So in order to be elected at Turkish Airlines, the prospective member needs to be a shareholder of the incorporation, should possess the required qualifications and skills that are specially set out under the Turkish Commercial Code. So there are certain skills that you have to have in order to be able to run as an applicant for office at Turkish Airlines. So also the shareholding part is very essential. So if no shares are in the possession of the candidate, he obviously is only allowed to assume his office after having become a shareholder. And the shareholder assembly has the right to approve or disapprove the application of the prospective member. Thus, they have like a veto right to say yes or no, this is a candidate we can live with. And a final requirement states that a minimum of 6 of the members of the board have to be Turkish nationals. So here again, we can see that the nationality of being Turkish or being a part of Turkey is very important to Turkish Airlines. The final section of part number 1 is our point number 5, the structure of the web page section of corporate governance. Here we have several subsections. For example, the board of directors, we've just talked about, the general assembly, which we already have heard about. We have several subcommittees. Also, the articles of association, which are like a standard you have to have on your website. We have the ethics and CSR, which we'll hear about later on more. The dividend policy, the public disclosure policy are subjects under this section. Also the independent auditors, which is a brief section, but it's also very important as it shows the consultant company acting as an auditor for Turkish Airlines, especially important for the consolidated financial statements. They look after that. And we have a donation policy, as well as the remuneration policy, and last but not least, the commercial registry, which is also one of the basic things you have to have on your commercial homepage under the corporate governance section. Okay, part number 2 of this presentation is the Code of Discipline. Here we will look at the annual report of corporate governance. And again, we will start with Lufthansa. Here their aim is to increase their value in a sustainable way, but also in accordance with the internal regulations. So it is said that the executive board members are all equally responsible for the governance of the company, and they have to keep each other updated and informed concerning the important transactions and activities and everything that's taking place. So decisions made on these issues are taken by a simple majority of votes, so that's kept quite simply. However, certain transactions are of such gravity that they require the approval of the supervisory board. And thus not every decision can be taken solely by the board of directors alone. For example, borrowing capital, capital expenditures. If we look at long-term leasing of an aircraft, establishing new companies, acquisitions, or the disposals of shares, those are things that cannot be decided by the board of directors by themselves. Here the supervisory board has to have a say. And also, what is also important is that the executive as well as the supervisory board members are all liable personally for any incurred damages. So they have to make sure their decision is aligned with their personal interests, so that no damages are incurred, which would also mean their personal wealth would be damaged. Looking at the same part for Turkish Airlines, we can say that they emphasize the principles of transparency, justice, responsibility, and accountability. So board members are only allowed to be part of the board for 6 out of 10 years, which is determined by procedures and principles of the public disclosure, and in particular on how share information with the shareholders, investors, and other participants in the capital market, such as all relevant share and stockholders. So the overall aim here is to inform stakeholders in a punctual and accurate way. Information have to be complete, comprehensible, so it has to be understandable, and easily accessible. So it's meant that it shouldn't be easy, shouldn't be difficult to find something, should be easy to understand. So the information, events, developments, everything that might influence the investment decision of the investors, they have to be informed at any time. Also, every shareholder who owns a certain amount of shares holds the same amount of voting rights and is also required to attend the assembly, where of course such information are being distributed, and then it's much easier for them to make an informed decision. When we look at the dividend payment, the Turkish Airlines Great Assembly also determines the method, but not only that, but also the time of the dividend payment, and is thus taking into account the strategic targets, growth trends, financial needs, and expectations of the shareholders in the incorporation. And also the remuneration of the directors is also set by the assembly, which of course also includes the fact that board members are not allowed to take up a loan from Turkish Airlines. So if they are in need of money and they need to take up a loan, they are not allowed to do that through the company. Our third and last point will be the corporate governance and CSR section. Here we will look at why the firms are investing in CSR and what exactly they are doing. We will start with Lufthansa again. They have formed a principle of how to select the best employees, to develop them, to take care of their retention, which also attached to this subject is the remuneration and the working conditions of the employees. So what are the workers' interests? They have to be considered in order to have a more flexible working day and also make them stay with the company as long as possible. Here, the continuing education and flexible working hours are very important, and another focal point is that Lufthansa ensures the professional development, innovation, and basically the maintenance of expert knowledge, which makes, of course, possible to combine family and career, and in turn that makes Lufthansa more attractive as an employer. Another initiative is the Aid Alliance of Lufthansa, where they support developing projects in low economy countries with the objective to help people to help themselves in order to enable them to lead independent lives. So those humanitarian projects involve subjects such as supporting schools and training centers, but they also of course have food and health programs, as well as business startups that they support, and naturally they also have the classical street children aid projects for them to ensure to have a sustainable future development. What can be said is that they also provide a disaster relief program, which by now involves over 100 projects in Africa, for example, Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin and South America. And here they have a very strict point where they say we keep ourselves politically and religiously independent. So whatever they do, they help, but they're not getting involved in politics or religion. And they, of course, what can be seen from this, they make use of their importance as a very big, globally, internationally known and famous company in order to point out to the world the social problems. They collect donations for this for good causes, and all under the motto small change, it's a big help. And another issue, of course, is the environmental issue, especially in a very fuel guzzling industry. The company has to take care of its image concerning the environment. So that would be more easily said than done, but Lufthansa found a way, and they said our logo is the crane, so that's our symbol. So what would be more logical than making a commitment to protecting exactly this animal. So there being one of the endangered species, they say, or make the crane to their symbol and say we're going to become the godfather of the crane, and say we're going to save the species because it's sort of our symbol. Then we come to Turkish Airlines. Of course, they also have CSR programs. First, we start with the fuel efficiency program, where they focus on the major issues in the aviation industry with the aim of finding ways to reduce the carbon emissions. And this program is firstly focusing on measuring and monitoring the efficiency of the fuel, and resulting in that aiming at an increase of efficiency, and at the same time at reducing the carbon footprint. And they have sort of divided this into three proportions. The first one is the optimization of the operations. So they have developed pilot techniques. They have introduced new optimized flight planning systems. They had an optimization of the routes of the aircraft, weight reductions, and things like modifications at the aircraft were things that need to be mentioned here. The second part of this is new technology. So they invested in seeking new methods and technologies which least possibly negatively affect the environment. And by now they actually possess one of the youngest, most fuel efficient and modern airplane fleets in the industry. So that's quite impressive. And the third point of this fuel efficiency program is the improvement of the infrastructure. Here they have do constant research on the field of optimizing flight routes, as well as infrastructural projects such as airport enhancements or airspace usage, for example. And the result of this fuel efficiency program is that they increased their efficiency by 19% ever since this program started. Okay, another point of Turkish Airlines is their CSR concerning the EuroLeague basketball. It's a sponsorship to create an initiative which is called One Team. It's a way to support those who are a little bit disadvantaged, either mentally or physically, and the goal here is to develop them socially and use the sport of basketball as a way to assist the EuroLeague team players, to support them, to foster those people who are, as I said, disregarded and also sometimes overlooked in society. And they look to it that they improve their skills, that they enhance their future perspectives, and they use the game of basketball in a way of an integrative tool to make society aware of how valuable those people actually are, even though they might have a disability which does not enable them to participate fully. And last but not least, together with the Turkish Red Crescent Society, Turkish Airlines is involved in a natural disaster recovery program, which is taking care of blood drive and educational programs and publicity activities. And it is a way of transport assistance in case of a natural disaster. So whatever happens, a flood, a storm, whatever it is, Turkish Airlines is there to get help in and get affected people out of the region. And as a little add-on, the company goes so far as to commit themselves to planting a tree for each child between the ages of 0 and 2, which is traveling with the aircraft. So it's a very clever way of involving their passengers, of saying, okay, if you fly with us, you also do something for the environment, because we commit ourselves to saying, okay, we're gonna plant one tree for every toddler that travels with us. So now we come to an end to my presentation. I hope I could shed some light on the comparison between Lufthansa and Turkish Airlines. I thank you for your attention and say goodbye.